I wanted to, in the interest of time, just kind of skip over everything on the agenda and basically get to our guest speaker, and actually have you all introduce yourselves as well. Karen O'Brien is the executive director for the Michigan Recycling Coalition, and she and I had a chance to interact briefly on a virtual or a live streamed, I think it was a convention of some kind, if I remember. She put me on the spot. I wasn't ready, so but it was all good. It was all good. And since then, we've all been following along on the MRC and what they've been up to and their work with Eagle and other such things. But when I got the Michigan Recycling Coalition newsletter, and it was talking about that part 115, which had actually come up in our discussions just last month with our committee as it pertains to Daniel and Denise and their membership on that solid waste committee for Allegan County. So Karen is, as I said, the ED, and she's been in that role since 2008, I think. I went and stalked her on LinkedIn. And basically she runs the whole show, but she's been there since 1993. So I think she knows from which she speaks. What I'll do is I'll just go around and have everybody introduce themselves and talk about where you're from. And I'm just going to go around on my screen. Demetria.
Hi, well, hi, Karen. Hello to everyone else as well. I'm Demetria, living in Douglas in one of the condo sections, and been here for about 3.5 years.
Mark
Epstein. I live on Bayou Trail in the Saugatuck Township. Been a resident of Michigan now for about 15 years.
Very good. Daniel.
I'm Daniel DeFranco. I live in Saugatuck Township, relatively new to Michigan. I've been here almost 5 years. And I'm one of the members on the Allegan County Solid Waste Planning Committee. So very excited that you're here and interested to listen to what you have to say.
Rana.
Hi, I'm Rana, and I'm over in Douglas. I've been on this side of the state for almost 24 years. So good to be here. Thanks for taking the time to run us through what you've got.
Denise. You're muted.
Hi, yeah, there we go. Denise Webster. I'm in Saugatuck Township. I'm also on the Solid Waste Commission with Daniel. I am been in Michigan for 35 years, but I've come most recently from the mid-Michigan area, and I've been down here in Saugatuck Township for about a year.
Carrie, I'll go and have you introduce yourself as well.
Sure. So I'm Carrie, and I'm from Michigan, from Lansing, but have pretty much moved away and only came back to Michigan a few weeks ago. And I'm here to figure out where I want to be next. I am very passionate about the environment, and I'm really curious to see what's going on here in Saugatuck.
Very good. Kathy.
Kathy North, City of Douglas. I've lived in Michigan my whole life and over here for about 9 years.
Very good. Joe, you want to introduce yourself, bud?
Yep. Hi, everybody. I haven't met any of you, but I wanted to introduce myself. I'm Joe Fry. I'm the township manager here in Saugatuck. And I've been here since January, but I'm a proud Michigander, so.
Fire up, Chips.
Yeah,
right.
And that too. I'm a proud Chippewa.
Very good. Kelly.
Hi, everybody. So I'm Kelly Roach. I live in Saugatuck City on the Hill. And I'm one of those people, I bought a house here 12 years ago. I was living downtown Chicago and then fell so in love with it that I moved here permanently 3 years ago.
Very good. And lastly, I have someone who dialed in on the iPhone.
Hi, it's Lori.
Hi, Lori.
Hi.
Introduce yourself.
Lori Gosshorn, lived here almost 10 years. And I had a client up until a second ago. What else are we saying? Anything else? Or is
That's
that
fine.
good?
Just introducing yourself.
All right.
All
thanks.
good. Okay, I think that's everybody. We might have a few folks sneak in, Karen, but I'm going to turn it over to you and let you fill us in on part 115. And if you're willing, have you entertain some questions when you're done. How's that?
Most definitely. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me. I just have to say you're all very lucky to live where you live. I'm sure you know that. But I'm in Lansing, probably about as far away from water as you can get in Michigan, and it's not as fun in the summertime. So I'm going to share my screen because I do have a presentation that I've given to the sponsors of the Part 115 bill package and to the House of Representatives in general. So you're going to get what they get, which is really a kind of deep dive into what this bill package is and what we've been doing to promote and support recycling over time. Really, all of this is about modernizing Michigan's, waste management, efforts. Right now, all of our waste management is really about disposal, and we really need to modernize that to consider more of a materials management focus to use stuff more productively. Back in the late 1980s, there was this Mobro garbage barge. I don't know how many of you might remember this, but this guy out of New York said, "Hey, I can get rid of your garbage for cheaper than you're getting rid of it." And he put all of this garbage on a barge, and it traveled down the eastern seaboard all the way to Belize, stopping at every single port along the way to find a place to dispose of this waste, and nobody wanted the waste. So it caused kind of a firestorm, and federal legislation then came into play to require states to plan for the disposition of waste. And in Michigan, we put that responsibility on counties through county solid waste planning. So Daniel and Denise, that's why you're involved the way you are. The challenge with our current law is really that it is all about disposal capacity. So our current law requires every county in Michigan to assure that there are 5.5 years of capacity in a local landfill or an incinerator for 100% of the county's waste. If you can't secure that within your own county, you have to have a deal with another county and another landfill in another county to assure that you have that disposal capacity. And if you can't do it that way, then you have to make way for the development of new capacity. What this has done unintentionally is become a way to expand and add disposal capacity without real need. So we have more disposal capacity in Michigan than we can use, and it artificially keeps the price of disposal very low, and it makes it very hard for recycling and composting to compete with the cost of disposal. So updating Michigan solid waste laws is really important to, get rid of this policy preference we have for disposal, but also to incorporate in our, solid waste management the ideas and the developments that have happened over the past 30 years in managing materials more productively. So you'll even see a change in the language from solid waste and disposal capacity to really materials management, utilization, and capacity to do that. So, an overview, we've got about just over 18% recycling rate in Michigan. Not that great, probably one of the lowest, if not the lowest, in the Great Lakes region. The national average is about 34%. And conceptually, we can probably recycle 70% of the stuff that we throw away every day if we had comprehensive services for every resident in the state. But we don't, and we don't have that because, frankly, we haven't invested in that. Other states in the country have invested, and it really is to their economic benefit, because if we were to achieve a goal of recycling 45%, it would translate into 138,000 people in Michigan employed in recycling, $9 billion in labor revenue, and $33 billion in economic output. All very significant and are really, they really compete with the tourism industry, which is a very significant industry for Michigan. But because these issues are invisible, people are often like, it magically disappears from the curbside. People don't think about that or the benefits that we get from doing that. And part of our job is to really make that uninvisible, to make that stuff visible, to show who's responsible for this. So, I've been doing this work for a very long time. So has my organization. And in 2011, we developed a report about the state of recycling in Michigan. And in that report, we really said, if we could recycle at a high rate, and at that point it was 50%, we could capture $400 million annually in the material value alone of the stuff we were putting in the landfill. That means that if we can divert that stuff from the landfill and turn it into a commodity, that just the value of that material, not about production or manufacturing, we could add that to our economy. We would have to make a $76 million investment to be able to divert that material, but it's a 6x over investment. 6x benefit for that investment, and we would win. And that message caught on. We were talking that message to anybody who would listen. And in 2012, we got the attention of then Governor Snyder. And we basically held hands with him throughout his tenure as governor. And at the end of 2018, he went to bat for us. He led, there was two different efforts that were moving forward at that time. One is to update policy and the other was to provide funding. Governor Snyder was really a funding and a budget guy. And so that is what he chose to focus on. And he led the effort, and he was originally proposed to fund recycling through an increase in the landfill tip fee surcharge, which right now is like 36 cents a ton. And he suggested that we increase that to $4.75. Well, that was untenable for many of his Republican allies. And he said, well, if you're not going to give it to me in that way, tell me how you're going to fund this. And so there was a decision called the Wayfair decision. Basically, the Supreme Court requires now state taxes to be paid on items that you buy off the internet. And so the Governor Snyder then made the deal so that, actually a total of $69 million, first time environmental funding in Michigan ever, $45 million to go for contaminated site cleanup, $24 million to go to support recycling. $15 million of that 24 is really about going out to communities, counties, municipalities, townships to help bolster and support their recycling programs. And then $9 million to oversee an industry that is growing and changing and doing more things. And so we secured that in 2018. It was quite significant for us, for frankly, in the environment in Michigan. And since that time, the Eagle has had a number of grant opportunities and funding opportunities that are available to you all right now. The policy part of this process was a really successful part as well. We had more than 70 different groups as stakeholders in creating the language that is turned into this eight bill package that would update our solid waste laws. There is not one organization that opposes the bills or the package. There are 2 amendments on the table that are being considered, and we hope to, move those aside and move this through. In spite of that, we are having some political challenges moving this forward, and so we are looking for some assistance. And I'll talk about that more in a minute. But I'm going to go ahead and get into the meat and potatoes of this bill package. Basically, we're talking about turning about a 50-page law into a more than 200-page law, filling out a lot more detail about how we manage materials at the end of their useful life beyond disposal. So the overall goals of this package are really to level the playing field for recycling and composting, to make the cost of disposal look like it should, that it's not subsidized by policies that undercut, so that recycling and composting can compete. It's to update our goals so that communities are targeting efforts that are kind of greater than status quo. It's about establishing benchmark recycling standards, and I'll say more about that in a moment. It's about really re-engaging local governments in planning, because beyond the very either initial planning efforts that were funded by the state of Michigan, funding hasn't existed for planning since that time. And so planning has in essence become a means for the local landfill to open up the plan and get an expansion on that landfill, rather than it's serving as a way the community comes together to decide what's going to happen with its materials at the end of their life. So this is about infusing that process with funding so that we can have the conversations and be productive in how we're going to move forward. The package updates regulations and oversight tools, and it provides a carrot and stick approach to actually making progress. So now I'll get into kind of some of the details in each bill. I'm going to go rather fast, so just keep your questions at the top of your mind, because I'm happy to answer any questions you have. So benchmark recycling standards are really where the rubber meets the road. If we really want to pull materials out of households and businesses to make available to manufacturers, well, they have to have the programs that make that possible. So one of the standards is really for any community over 5,000, they've got to find a way to assure that those residents have curbside recycling. If for lower populations, and even for urban areas that need these services, drop-offs or otherwise to be provided. This is how basic services get provided. This package also defines compost types and compost facilities. There's been a real lack of oversight of composting facilities, which has caused problems for some communities. And so there's more regulations put in place to assure that, compost sites are community assets and not community burdens. And we'll say more about that soon. Functional stability is a different way of looking at landfills. Right now, there's a 30-year requirement for post-closure. So when a landfill closes, they've got to manage gas and leachate in this landfill for full 30 years. And once 30 years ends, they walk away. Well, if they can determine that there's no activity in that landfill, no gas, no leachate to manage, that timeline can be elongated or foreshortened based on if that cell is stable or if that landfill is stable. And that's based on science and not a timeline, and that's a good thing. Let's see, this defines host community approval. And so what we really tried to do with this package is give the host communities for all of these facilities as much control as possible without impeding the operations of the business, and also assuring that these facilities could be sited. So this is a state level plan, because if we can't put landfills, compost sites, and material recovery facilities in place in a community because they're being zoned out, that is a problem for how we manage these materials. So we're trying to kind of thread a fine needle between the state requiring a township to host a facility and a county or a community being able to define for themselves whether or not they even need that facility. And so if you can for example, demonstrate that you don't need a landfill expansion because you're putting a compost site in place and you've got a recycling facility in place that will manage this amount of material, then you're home free and you don't need to expand that landfill. So that's important. We're talking about materials utilization. So anything that's a productive use of a material is basically utilization. Even waste to energy facilities are utilization, but they're not recycling. And so utilization kind of covers the whole gambit, whereas recycling is a certain part of those processes. Again, we've got a new goal for the state, but really this planning process is about counties determining their own goals and their own ways to accomplish those goals. And really, it's about showing progress and movement toward those goals, which is what the state's interested in. And it's really important that what the county develops as its own plan and what's happening in the county complies with Part 115, because all of these serve as kind of the legal framework within which your systems develop, and that you get protection for what it is you're doing, in your community. This particular bill is really about updating kind of landfill requirements. This is all about landfills, updating licensing requirements and fees that haven't been increased even for even over time. Gosh, I'm not finding the word, but basic increases in fees over time. There are new requirements for gas management because landfill gases contribute significantly to to climate change and general GHG volumes. And their Eagle is not able to step onto a compost site at this point to inspect and monitor those sites. This gives Eagle the capacity to do that. So if there is a problem, communities get the support they need to attack that problem. And I've already talked about these kind of post-closure requirements and the flexibility that they offer. Financial assurance really is for all sites. So there's new financial assurance requirements for compost sites and material recovery facilities, but this is most important for landfills because landfills change the landscape. So if a landfill were to have some kind of catastrophic failure or someone were to go bankrupt, the state's going to be left holding the bag, and we want to make sure the state has the resources it needs to collect the leachate, manage the gas, and close the site if all of that is necessary. And we've had some instances in Michigan where Michigan has been left holding the bag, and there's not enough money to do that work. And guess who pays for that? We pay for that. So this is a way to make sure that burden is shared, and that private companies, especially who do this work, are held accountable for that work. This is one of the sticks that I mentioned earlier. So the federal government requires the state to plan, the state requires counties. If a county chooses not to plan, then the state has to step in to do that plan. And in order to meet the requirements of Part 115, then the state is going to require haulers who are operating in that county to provide, benchmark recycling services. How else are these needs going to be met? And so if a county says, well, I don't want the state doing that, then the county is more likely to step up and do that plan and figure out how it's going to meet those needs over time. So we think that's a good way to keep everybody at the table. So this is really about how money gets distributed, that $15 million, and the grants are being given right now for infrastructure and market development, so that we're doing our best to attract and use all the materials in Michigan businesses, or in Great Lake businesses, or in this country for that matter, and that we're not shipping our problems overseas, but it takes a lot of work. That's happening already with Renew funds, but the planning, I want to help you understand that we've got a 5-year planning cycle. For all 5 years, every county will get $60,000 per year, which hopefully, allows you to hire a person to kind of oversee the whole effort. But the first 3 years of planning, because planning is a significant lift, a county will get 50 cents per capita to do that planning work. Now, if a county and its community members can expedite planning, then any remaining money can also be used for implementation. So there is a reason to, engage quickly and expedite that process. And Eagle is also putting together a template to make it easier to plan as you go forward, to report data, and to get everybody to the table, all that kind of stuff. But planning is a significant part. So $10 million of the $15 million is going to be used for planning. It's going to go out to the communities, and $5 million is going to be available for those last 2 years of the planning cycle for planning. And so there will only be $5 million available for grants in that first 3 years, $10 million available for grants in that second 2-year cycle. Not sure what's going to happen exactly after those cycles, but once this act passes, once hopefully we pass this package, the Eagle director will likely call for a new planning process, and the money will start to flow, and the timeline will start to tick. This bill in the package is really about all material utilization facilities, but the most important additions are really about regulations around the composting industry and about operations. The most important thing here is that we recognize that we have a yard waste ban, so there are many townships who are managing, their yard waste in the back 40. They're not really doing much to those piles. They're just kind of sitting there. Well, those can create a nuisance, especially if you want to add food waste and other types of organics to those piles. They need to be actively managed piles, and the resulting product, compost, at the end of that should be going to benefit land-based industries in your communities. Farms, landscapes, roadsides, any number of ways benefit from soil amendment that increases the nutrient density of the soil and the water holding capacity. All kinds of good stuff happens with compost. But those operations, depending on their size and their capacity, they can manage more complex organics. But there's going to be a kind of limitations on size and ability to compost different types of organics. The larger the facility, the more leeway they're going to have, because it's likely they have more operators and equipment to be able to manage this stuff really actively. So this is how we're talking about turning these compost sites into community assets. It doesn't make sense, excuse me, to move organics around the state or to move food waste around the state. It's messy, it's stinky, we really need to make those community assets. So I'm sure you'll be talking a lot more about compost and organic waste, because that's a huge part of the waste stream you'll have to manage. The final bill of the package really gets into the weeds about what we are now calling materials management planning. It used to be called solid waste planning, but now we're talking about the whole spectrum of materials. And so, it's about, it incentivizes regional planning. So in recognition that not every county should have a landfill, not every county may need a material recovery facility. And so let's work together on what our needs are and appropriately sizing these facilities to meet our needs. It updates the timetable and who gets represented on that. Conceivably, your communities will each have a representative at the table negotiating what this plan looks like. In this package of bills, there's also listed a whole host of ways you can fund your programs. A lot of Michigan services are provided by, the local resident calling up their local waste hauler to say, I need services in front of my homes. But if we can organize as communities to get a community-based service, you can often get higher quality, more services for a cheaper price. And so that's what we hope, communities are working toward, because we have, you'll all have more control over the whole process and product. And then it talks about, how these are going to get funded. Again, I talked about assurance, the importance of your county plan becoming the law of the land, and that being, compatible and enforceable by Part 115. These become legal tools that you can use to cite facilities or choose not to cite facilities. So they're important tools to assure that you have the influence and control you need. So that, whoops, let me go back one. So that's the kind of package in a nutshell. And I'll tell you that we've taken this package through the House of Representatives. It's now sitting in the Senate Regulatory Reform Committee. This is not who we expected it to go to. We expected it to go to an environmental committee, but Senator Nesbitt requested it be in his committee. We're not sure why, but we are now hearing that he may just be interested in holding a hearing this fall, but that's not a done deal. Nobody opposes this. This really has to get done so we can move on to bigger things. It's being, I think Senator Nesbitt's got the concern that this is going to directly raise costs, which it doesn't. He's got a concern that there's a solid waste surcharge attached, which it doesn't. He's got concerns that there's not everybody, this is big government, and there's many people that don't want this, which it doesn't. And so if you have any influence to bear on sharing, with him your thoughts and your, I think, community needs for this kind of package, we'd appreciate that. And in fact, through our newsletter, we have letter templates and sign-on letters and things like that. And Garnet, if you have our newsletter, you have access to all that stuff, and I can help as well. But this is probably a good time for me to take any questions that you might have.
Right. So I want to thank you. This is very informative. Know exactly who Eric is. So, Daniel and Denise, I wanted to be sure that you all had a chance to ask some questions first, because they just had a solid waste committee meeting 2 weeks ago, I think. And I wanted to make sure they had a chance to ask you some questions, because there were some things that were said during that meeting that even caused me a little bit of concern. So I'll open it up to them.
The only thing that I got from that meeting is that the county is waiting to do any type of updating of any type of plan until this gets passed. I realize that that funding might be a big part of this, but I'm not sure why we don't update the plan in the meantime and moving towards some of these goals that you've talked about. I just didn't quite understand that. And there was a comment, and Daniel can correct me, is that I got the impression that it went to this committee and it's going to die.
That is what
Rosemary
Graham had said to us. Although that was communicated to her secondhand, that was her kind of interpretation of the information that she received. That I guess that she was surprised, or whoever communicated to her was surprised that it ended up in this regulatory reform committee, and that their impression was that it went there to die.
Yeah. And so I've heard that same thing. And that was very disappointing to me. So we're hard at work. We do have a lobbyist, and we are hard at work to change that dynamic. And I've been in touch with contacts at the Foundry Association, at the Michigan Manufacturers Association, with the Chamber of Commerce, and with the Michigan Waste and Recycling Association. Those are kind of four kind of organizations that have, I think, an outsized influence. And what I heard was very positive from them. I think that they are in lockstep in support of the package if we can make progress on these two amendments. And the two amendments really are issues that the Townships Association brought forward. And it's about kind of how far local control is, how far the ability of locals have in controlling operations. I think that we're aligned to be able to resolve those two issues and move things forward. And hearing that, I feel a lot more optimistic that we're going to get the hearing that we need this fall. And in fact, we will be hosting Eric Nesbitt at a tour of Cascade Engineering, which is a plant that makes recycling carts, out of post-consumer recycled content. And so it's the perfect kind of connection to help him see that this is really about business. This isn't about tree hugging. This is about making sure we have resources from Michigan for Michigan businesses to do something. And so we're doing everything in our power, but that is also why I'm saying, he could probably hear from you too about the perceived need. I will say, Denise, you talked about, you don't understand necessarily why counties aren't beginning the process right now. And the thing that I would say about that is that if a county did start that process right now, it would be under an old framework, an old policy framework that is really about disposal capacity. And if you start there, then, and I don't know, do you have a landfill in your county?
No, we don't. I think we export all of our solid waste.
Lucky you. But it would be about disposal capacity, and you could, you're probably in a better position than somebody that hosts a landfill, because then that landfill interest, I think, gets an outsized influence over what that plan looks like, because it's an old framework. The new framework, I think, provides kind of a much better way to move forward, to make sure that all the needs are covered. But if you are a forward-thinking group, you can get a jump start on planning. And even though the funding might not be there or catch up to you very quickly, the funding that you're able to save then can be used for implementation. So there's two sides to that coin.
Okay. Other questions from the group? I'll open it up to the group, and then I have a few. Anybody?
Karen, I did have a question about about what we can do. So in the planning committee, we did make a motion to request that. So Allegan County essentially has not made any kind of moves in supporting the legislation. I think they were asked to, and they just haven't, and it's unclear if they don't support the legislation or they just haven't done anything. So our committee formally asked them whether or not the Allegan County commissioners supported the legislation, whether they would put that in writing and send it to the legislature. And if they don't support it, to give us an explanation of why they don't support it. We did talk to Rosemary as well about having our municipalities write letters in support to both Allegan County and to Eric Nesbitt. And it sounds like you have a letter template which would be fantastic and make it a lot easier for us, because then we can present it to the city of Saugatuck, Douglas, and the township. And I did put that as a recommendation in our latest recycling report to the township board, that they sign on to a letter encouraging the county and Eric Nesbitt to support the legislation. But is there anything else that we could be doing in the meantime?
I have to thank you very much for, forcing the hand of Allegheny County. I think that's wise. I think counties, there's a little bit of a love-hate relationship here because, it's a lot of work for counties to do this. But it's really important coordination work that has, I think could have economic benefits, services for cheaper for residents, or economic development opportunities in terms of new facilities that provide services and employ people. So I think that is valuable. But counties also kind of get to interact and try to forge a new way with you guys. And I think that when we have a whole state having the same kind of conversation, that you never know what is going to kind of blossom out of those conversations, that's really going to, I think, propel us forward. So I think that it's really important. And I have received a number. Antwerp Township passed a resolution, Paw Paw passed a resolution, Manistee County and Marquette County. And so I have a whole bunch of resolutions that have been passed. So they're not alone. And if we can get, that kind of support, we're all about that. Individual support, anybody who is in, his district who can say, hey, I just want to register my, just make a call. It's as easy as a 3-minute phone call to say, I just want to register my support for this package of bills. It helps us think differently. There's a lot of focus right now with the current administration on climate change. And the unfortunate thing that I'm finding with that climate change conversation is that it's really all about energy production, energy use. But there's some significant demonstrated impact in the production, consumption, disposal of all the products we deal with every day. And if we don't clue into how we manage not only the waste at the end of the line, but how we produce those products and use those products, then I think we're really missing an important part of the conversation. And so it's us, we often personally have very limited impact. I think recycling is one way we can personally have an impact. So it's important that those opportunities are provided. And I really hope communities step up to making those available.
So Karen, I've got a couple questions for you related to Daniel. So those House bill packages, I've got all the numbers. What's the Senate bill package number? Do you know?
It's going to be the same bill package, same numbers, same. Yep.
Same numbers. Okay. And then is it possible for you to send to me, and I'll share with the group, either a constituent letter that's been used, because I remember signing off on something, and then the resolution, a copy of it. And we can run with that in our 3 municipalities and see what kind of havoc we can create. And I do happen to know another member of that committee very well, Jeremy Moss. So I'm going to actually reach out to Jeremy.
Excellent.
But I'll see if you have Eric's, I know it's a legislative email and phone number. It'll go right to a staffer, but
yeah, I can find that for you easily.
Okay, that would be huge. I think this collective group can get on its warhorse, and
that's great.
Yeah,
that's great.
Individual letters work really well. I know.
Yeah.
Individual contacts.
I know there's a group out of Detroit that's going to be doing a campaign, putting a message in a water bottle and sending it to his office. So I'm not sure if that has happened yet or not, but he's hearing from a lot of people, which is great.
Good. All right, cool. Other questions from the crew?
I just wanted to clarify, Daniel, Denise, when you reference the county, you're talking about our county supervisors that are part of this
county commissioners.
Yeah, county commissioners.
Yes.
And there's these 7 or 8 individuals that run the show for the county, right?
Is that how many we have? If
7.
that's how many there is, there's
7.
Yes, it's the county board.
Yeah.
County board. And
Dean Capenga is our representative.
Say that again.
Dean Capenga.
Yeah. So were they receptive? Were they interested? Was it like ho hum, or Would
We
you?
have no interaction with them. We're a separate committee. So
I didn't see,
they,
I got the impression that nobody knew. When we were at that committee, nobody really knew how they responded or how they are thinking.
Yeah, I'll chime in here and say, because planning hasn't happened in a meaningful way in almost like 25 years, whatever expertise, knowledge, information that people have had have dried up. And so there is a designated planning agency in each county of appointed people to do the work, but ultimately the county board of commissioners have to sign off on it. So it's likely that the DPA here, which I think Dan and Denise are a part of, are going to have to bubble up what they think needs to happen moving forward.
Thank you.
And I can tell you there's a 16 member board and there's only 5 people on the board. That's all we have. Is that right, Daniel?
I think we have more, but 2 didn't show up.
Is that the way it was?
Yeah, I think.
Wow.
Yeah,
For 16 members, there was only 5 of us. Wow.
Yeah, there are still lots of vacancies. And most of I was kind of surprised that most of the representatives are from the solid waste industry themselves. Like that's the vast majority of representatives, or at least positions, available for, on the committee.
Yep, that's correct. And this is just kind of my current thinking about this, but if this bill package passes this year, the Eagle director is likely to say, we're going to call for plans as of January 1st, 2023, for example, which gives you guys time to kind of like get everything together so you can start here. And there will be requirements for representation. And so it will be important to attract all the, the right kinds of people. The solid waste industry has been through this and knows how to do this and frankly get what it is that they want out of it. So we'll have to make sure that there, is an equal representation of people that, want to use these materials productively. That's not to say that the waste industry, isn't also providing recycling and composting services, but we just have to make sure, you are all well represented.
So Karen, along those lines, so the timing then, you said that probably committee hearings will start sometime this fall. What's the, yeah, she's, so walk us through the timing of everything.
Yeah, if things happen, so the budget still hasn't been passed this year. And so before October 1st, I think people are saying, everything is going to focus on the budget. And then, after October 1st, the chairman is probably going to be setting the schedule for his committee. And then we'll have a better idea after that point, if it is going to be, this year or next. We do have another year that he could hold hearings, but we're really pushing for this fall. And again, that's what we need your help to do. But it's not likely that the director is going to then just turn around and say, okay, we're calling for planning right now. They're going to want to give a little lead time, give Eagle time to develop all the tools and support they need to make it a really productive planning process for all of you. But the planning process itself is probably a 3-year process, minus a little bit if you can make it go fast.
Okay. All right. With that, I'm going to give you a little opportunity to do a plug for your upcoming convention in Bay City.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate that. So we have an annual conference every year, usually in May, but because of COVID, we're having 2 this year. We did have a conference, a virtual conference in April and May. October 28th and 29th, we have a 2-day conference scheduled for Bay City. We're hoping that it's going to still be in person, but that's it's not a given. If not, it will be a virtual event and we'll cover all kinds of topics, organics management topics, how to provide curbside food waste collection. Gosh, we have really great speakers about EPR, extended producer responsibility. So we really try to give really good, solid, on the ground information about how to provide recycling services, how to enhance the services that you offer in your community, connect you with other people who are doing that work. And I'm sure we'll be doing a little bit of talk about this package and hopefully about the planning to come as well. So we have information on our website, michiganrecycles.org, and we should have that full program available for you within a week.
Okay, very good.
Thank you so much. I appreciate
All
the
right.
opportunity to talk.
Well, thank
Karen,
you.
Karen,
Oh.
I have one last question for you.
Sure.
Do you know of any other counties that either may have gotten started on their planning or are very excited and active in beginning the preparations for planning that we might be able to connect with and reach out to?
I recommend you talk to Washtenaw County.
Okay.
Theo Egermont there really just completed planning for Washtenaw, and he may be able to help you understand why he did it and what the results are. But I think they really had a progressive planning process in spite of working under these previous, set of policies.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Awesome. Excellent. Well, thank you so much for your time. We'll let you hop off.
Okay. Thanks for
Thank
having me.
you. All
Thanks
right.
for all your work. Okay.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. All right. Wow. Holy moly. Okay. I was taking notes like furious. So I will get those items from her, you all, and it's up to you if you want to individually reach out to Senator Nesbitt. I think it can't hurt. It always is very helpful. Folks tend to think that, it won't matter if I, as one person, either send an email and or call, but it does matter, and it makes a big difference. Even if the staffer, answers the phone and, just logs your information. So it's well worth the time and energy. Go
Eric
ahead.
Nesbitt writes to me often because I get on the phone and I make comments about this and that and this and that, and so either he or his staffer does. So and he's also written, I think, to some members of this committee, thanking people for service. So
Yes, he has. Yes,
so
I know.
let's give it to him.
Yeah, I think that would be a time well placed. So let's stay tuned. And then as far as our municipalities, I think Rana and Daniel and I next week we can talk. By then I'll have a sample resolution, and we can work on something to put forth to our 3 municipalities, which I don't think will hurt at all. All right, in the 35 minutes that I can afford to give, I've got about 1, 2, 3, a bunch of things that we need to kind of report on. And so I'm just going to go through the unfinished business items. Souls for Souls, Kelly, you have an update? I think you're done, right?
We're done. August 31st was the last day. Now I say we're done, but then Landshark and For the Love of Shoes wanted to keep going with it. So circulate that around that we will continue on. I'll continue taking those. In all honesty, the big drops were the library and the fire department, because nobody wanted to go downtown in the summer. I don't know why, to drop their stuff off. So if there's a need for it, we're going to continue the program. So that'll still be part of our group, and I'll still collect shoes.
Congratulations.
It was a great success, you guys, and it was fun. So, and everything's been shipped out. So we're good.
Kelly, do you have any idea how many that you sent out?
I just picked up more shoes at the library yesterday. So we're probably at 460 shoes total that went out, which is a lot, you guys. It's half of a garage.
And what was the most, what were the most surprising shoes you got?
I had some tennis shoes that looked like, okay, so it was supposed to be either new or gently used. There was a pair of shoes that looked like a shark had attacked them. So half the shoe was missing.
Oh man.
But mostly it was good. I mean, I really think that most of them will be able to be well used. So we're good.
Very good. Congratulations. Well done.
Thank you for doing that. That was a ton of work.
My pleasure.
Yeah, really appreciate it. Battery buckets. And Daniel, I've got a little bit to add on my end. So go ahead. You first.
Good. So I think that, we had enough funding, I believe, for 3 buckets. 2 buckets. Oh, so the township is done. The township sent in their second bucket. Township filled up their first bucket. I think almost everyone did within a month.
Mhm.
Township's second bucket filled up within a month and a half, and there's still demand. So I did recommend to the board that they begin to fund it on their own. I think that they see how busy they are in the office with people dropping off batteries, and I think in general they're getting a lot of people just stopping in and saying hi, and so it's a great opportunity to just kind of connect with the general public. So I'm hoping that they continue with that program, but we'll find out after the board meeting tonight.
Okay, and along those lines, the city of Saugatuck did fill up its first bucket. Peter had it picked up yesterday, and so our second bucket will arrive. So we actually had a whole unrelated bucket sitting there of those bigger ones. So as soon as our new bucket arrives, it'll probably be a third full of those big ones. But yeah, each municipality, we could fund 2. So basically we're going to ask each municipality to take over the subscription. And really for $110, I think it's worth it, especially if we frame it from the perspective of how absolutely delighted folks are to be able to drop off their batteries.
And just as a quick overview, I don't know if we've all talked about this since, but the first couple buckets, I counted ours and there was like 580 or something like that. And then Daniel came over and we counted the first township bucket and there was like 800 and something, right?
Yeah, 803.
So just in those 2 buckets, and I think Douglas is now half full, and then I don't know, the second bucket went. So we're just averaging in between that. It's a lot of batteries.
And that's surprising given how many batteries we had dropped off for the household hazardous waste day. Just like, oh my God, there's like multiplying like fishes and loaves or something like that. It's astounding, but it's great. We're obviously meeting a need. So thank you for that. Paper gators, Rana.
Paper gators, we're kind of moving forward at a snail's pace here. And I did get a signed letter I was waiting from, back up a half a second. The woman from Paper Gator asked for each municipality's city manager to sign a letter of agreement saying that it wouldn't interfere with the ordinances. Anyways, the first one in was the township. So I have that one from Joe. And thank you, Daniel, for helping get that one through. And I'm still working with Rich, the city manager here, to get ours signed. And hopefully we'll have that by the end of this week. And Darn, I don't know where it is with Ryan.
I'll follow up with them.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
So if it all goes, I'm hoping that by end of October, she has to order the bins and material. There's a material shortage in making them. So at any rate, it seems like end of October, hopefully that we'll see those around town. So before that happens, I'll write an article for the paper and kind of give people an update on where they'll be located and what they'll take and that kind of thing. So I'm very excited to have those in place.
Very good. And yeah, Tim Travis wasn't at our Rotary lunch today, so I couldn't finalize details with him about one at the school. So, I think with the letter basically saying we're not in violation of any kind of a noise ordinance, he'll be good to go. So stay tuned on that one. Reusable bags, Rana?
Yeah, reusable bags. I have done the designs for those. They are at Sisters in Ink, and hopefully we will have those by the end of this month. And then we're shooting to have, I've been in touch with Brett to set a date, and it seems like it'll be beginning of October. We'll be outside of Lake Vista. I almost said Demons. And he's getting back to me on good times for that. So depending on how we ended up ordering about 600 bags, and they're canvas, and yeah, I think they're fun. So that's cool. And we'll be selling them for $5 a pop, plus any donations that people want to give towards our additional funding for other projects, maybe the battery buckets or something like that, if the cities don't fund that. So I will keep you guys posted. And if I need additional help at the table to sell them or to talk about them, then that'd be cool. And we're excited because I think it'll be good public awareness as to what we've been doing and some of the programs we've got in the hopper and things we've done. So I think it'll be good.
Yeah, just everybody kind of put that on your burner to help a little bit with that. As was with the Household Hazardous Waste Day, kind of one of those all hands on deck kind of events. It's great. publicity for us, but it's a good chance for folks to, share their happiness about what it is that's going on. And, I try to share with this group as much as possible how absolutely pleased people are with our efforts. And for you to hear that firsthand and at that time of an opportunity, I think is well worth your time. So stay tuned as we get that organized.
And once I
go
have a
ahead.
date, I will reach out and see how many bodies we need. So that'll be good.
Great. And if Isabel's is any indication, more and more people are bringing their own bags in when they shop. So it's pretty cool. Reusable water bottles. Patrick's not with us, so we'll hold that thought. Yeah.
I see a hand raised by Carrie.
Oh, Carrie, go for it. Sorry.
That's okay. I just wanted to ask what the date was for that, Rana, where you'll be out there. Is that okay?
I don't know that yet. We're still working on it. And if you want to, I'm on the email list. If you want to email me directly, then I'll have your email and I'll definitely loop you in on that.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Great.
Very good. The Tri-Community Sustainability Authority, Barry and I met last week for the first time to begin the whole research process on how to even establish an authority. So stay tuned. It's going to take a little legwork, but it has possibility. The Recycling Partnership Grant, the application deadline, they had moved it to Friday the 2nd, I think it was. So I'm anticipating hearing something soon, fingers crossed. We applied for that grant to do an audit of our recycling bins, and hopefully we get that opportunity. And when we get the funding, that program would start January 1 and go through the entire 2022. So there's some training opportunities for us that will arise out of that. So as soon as I hear, you all will be the first to know. It's probably, I think in the grant, if I recall, based on the size of our 3 municipalities and our curbside recycling, we're looking at $6,000 to $7,000 to be able to do that program and do some educational materials along with it. So it could be a really cool opportunity. I added on here the business contact list. Kelly.
So per our last meeting, we talked about getting in contact with some of the businesses, so restaurants and that in Saugatuck Douglas, to see really what their needs are before we start to move forward with what exactly we want to try and offer as part of our group. So I reached out to Sadaba and they had a pretty inclusive list. And so then I sent that to Garn, Rana, and Daniel. And what I'd like to do with it is that basically the businesses are listed. I'd like to send it out to our group. And then there's a slot where you can put your name in if you have a personal relationship with someone there, whether it's the owner or manager or whatever. And then I think what our group should probably do is just come up with a list. And I know we started to talk about it a little bit at the last meeting of what we want to know, as far as the interest of the businesses getting involved based on also, what we're hoping to do, and get feedback that way. And I think if we can start these personal relationship conversations sooner rather than later, I think it's very helpful because a lot of people are still going to start to shut down slowly, And then Rana and I talked about doing a business forum, like a town hall. So start with the contacts and then move into doing kind of a town hall where maybe Ken Freestone can talk about some quick hit pearls that he's done with the town of Holland to start. And then gain feedback that way as well. And I think we should probably do that just via Zoom, because then people can come in from wherever they are if they are shutting their business down for the season and they're still interested in participating.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you for your energy and your time on that. I took a quick look at that list. It's a pretty good list. I think when we get to that point of organizing a town hall, Elizabeth Estes, one of my business partners, she has this great ability to pull all the business owners together. I think we see if we can get EBUS to help us kind of get that, because she tends to send out a note and people will respond, which is really awesome. So that I would love to have as good a participation with that as possible, and she will help us with that. So.
Yeah, if she can do that, and then the rest of us who have relationships too can pull those people in, and we can just get, a solid group to start to just see what the consensus is, I think it'll be really helpful. Because at this point, I feel like there's a lot of guesswork, and I know we have our objectives that we'd love to have happen, but if everybody else isn't on board with those, then it's like,
Right.
getting upstream.
Right. Okay. The other thing I wanted to mention, I posted to our Facebook page today the article out of the Holland newspaper regarding the Ottawa County composting pilot program that is being funded through a micros grant that they got. It color me envious, because it's like, oh my God, what I wouldn't do. So they have composting drop-off locations in Holland and in Grand Haven now. So if you get a chance, take a look at that Facebook link, or search on composting pilot program in the Holland Sentinel. It's nifty. It's pretty cool. It's one of the things I'd love to get us to, as we all know. So, all right. Other items to add to our busy day today. Nope. Any public comment? We have Denise and Carrie with us as members of the public. Anything you'd like to say? Denise is waving.
I'm super interested in everything you guys are doing, and I have a real passion for composting as well. And my mind starts buzzing and all these ideas come in. So just please, I'll just say this, I'm interested in helping. I would love paid work, but that's not necessarily what I need. So if I can help get things started. I don't know anyone in Saugatuck, so I am not the person to reach out to people. I have no contacts. But I certainly don't mind chatting, and I'm just passionate about this, and you guys all seem great, so I'd really love to help. So just share my email if you don't mind, Garnet, and I'll
Okay.
do as many meetings as I can and get involved.
All right. Perfect.
Thanks.
Sounds good. Excellent. Welcome. This is pretty much a volunteer effort, Carrie. This committee was appointed April of 2020. So we've been together for a while. We're trying to move our whole entity from a simple recycling focus to a sustainability focus. So we're making baby steps, but we're heading in the right direction. So yeah, if you're on Facebook, go ahead and join that group there as well. The Tri-Community Recycling and Composting. Go ahead and join in there. So. All right. Our next big meeting is Wednesday, October the 13th. I will be traveling, so I think if you all don't mind, I'm going to set it up as a Zoom again so that I can actually have it. So if you don't mind, it also probably makes Kathy's life a little easier, just from being able to take minutes. So for the next meeting, let's just plan on doing it via Zoom. Okay.
2 o'clock.
2 o'clock. Yeah. Anything else for the good of the order? I hope you found that session informative. I think the Michigan Recycling Coalition, just itself, is a worthy organization, and it's worth following them. The newsletters, I get them once a week, and there's a lot of information in there. It's really quite informative. So it'd be well worth your while to kind of pay attention to that. But Karen O'Brien herself, and her involvement across the state and her connections with Eagle, I think might ultimately be an asset to us. That's my thinking. Yes.
One thing, I had my hand up earlier, but I withdrew.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. When Rana was talking about setting up the table, I guess at you call it Demons, I call it Super Value at Lake Vista. Lake Vista. What about a second site, possibly at the Dunes View gas station? Because some people may not go to Demons or Lake Vista to shop, but they should probably go to get their booze or their gas at the BP.
Yeah, so Mark, if you want to take the lead on that and see if it's even possible to do that, that would be good. I mean, we have two things. First, we have to have permission to do it, and second, we have to have the bodies to be able to do it.
Yeah,
right?
I think it's Chris who's the owner. I'll talk to Chris, ask him if we can put a table up outside someplace.
Mark, that sounds great, and I think that makes a lot of sense to have it at more than one location. If you would ask for general permission and then say it would most likely be on a Saturday,
Right.
beginning of October, but I'd like to queue up so that it's the same date.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And I don't think he would say no, but
Hey, if you don't ask, they can't tell you no. So
yeah,
how's
that's
that?
exactly.
Very good.
Yeah.
All right,
Bernadette,
y'all. Yeah.
I found the presentation really, really interesting. And I think someone who's been working in that kind of capacity or that focus since 1993 has a wealth of scope of understanding and insight.
Mhm.
I think
Yeah.
Definitely an asset.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll be intrigued. I'd love to be able to link in or even find a way that a few of us could attend that Senate hearing, that committee hearing, just to, those committee hearings in themselves are really quite intriguing if you're into political stuff like I am. But just a presence, we could all like find an elegant shirt or something and remind the chair that his constituents are occupying the room. Could be quite fun.
I found it interesting that Kerry mentioned that Snyder was proposing increasing the tip rate from 34 cents to over $4.
Mm-hmm.
Was he serious?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Attention.
Yeah, actually Rick Snyder was, for all intents and purpose, an environmentalist. And he's a Washtenaw County guy. So his experience with all this was he was really most of the time incredulous that there wasn't more funding available for true sustainability type work. He really pushed it, but he got really frustrated very quickly into his tenure as governor because he couldn't get anything past a Republican legislature, which was just really frustrating to him because he really was a moderate. He really was, but he ran as a Republican, and that's what he got to deal with.
Yeah,
so.
but I think, why not go from 34 to $2 and then, after 2 years go to $4, but instead of going from 34 cents to 4, it's just.
Well, it just goes to show you, Mark, that there is money. There's a whole lot of money in that stuff, and we're missing an opportunity. So that's the gist of it.
Yeah.
All right, y'all. Thank you so much. I'm going to segue real quick. If any of you all are interested, the City Council is discussing finally the completion of the bike trail. We're discussing it at workshop at 4 o'clock, and then coming up here, if not Monday, the following Monday. And Holly Leo has done yeoman's work as chair of that tri-community committee to get this that far along. So send good juju our way. I would appreciate it.
Garn, do you just need City of Saugatuck people to comment on that, or you want?
Well, it can be anybody, but I really, more often than not, I've got a couple colleagues on council who like to say, well, the only people who are, talking about this are folks that live in the township or folks that live in Douglas. And so today I was like, anybody who lives in the city, that's what I want people to talk up. So, but everybody's welcome to say something. It's all good.
Okay.
All right, y'all. Thank you so much.
Thanks,
See you next
Garn.
time.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.
Yep.